Giving Kamala Harris control over inflation policy, Shannon, it's like giving Jeffrey Epstein control over human trafficking policy. The American people are much smarter than that. They don't buy the idea that Kamala Harris represents a fresh start. She is more of the same. It is doubling down on the failed policies of the Harris administration to give Kamala Harris a promotion rather than
J.D. Vance continues to be one of the worst decisions, if not the worst decision, that Donald Trump has ever made in his career in politics, and certainly one of the worst decisions in the history of presidential campaigns, because he continues to do this thing that is incredibly damaging to the Trump campaign. And that's open his mouth any time that J.D. Vance speaks. It is bound to either hurt him and his polling or backfire on Donald Trump. And he did both of those things. What an incredible multitasker, J.D., but he did both of those things in an interview on Fox. Yes, even on the Fox propaganda outlet, J.D. Vance, during his softball interview, found a way to screw over Donald Trump. And it's because, again, not only is J.D. Vance reminding the American people of what they dislike so much about the Republican Party, the MAGA movement, and what they're trying to bring forward in Project 2025, but he reminds people of the things that they really don't like about Don Trump. Somehow, out of nowhere, J.D. Vance decided to bring up one of the most hurtful things he could about Donald Trump. And we're going to get to that in just a minute, because it was just such a dumb decision. And the Fox host, was in fact shocked that J.D. Vance would even bring it up. But before we get to that, I want to check out this clip of J.D. Vance trying to defend Donald Trump, because it's just kind of humiliating.
Well, Shannon, I don't buy that argument, because Donald Trump was already president. He already secured the wall. He already implemented tariffs, which brought back 12,000 American factories were built during Donald Trump's administration, and prices were low and take-home pay was high. The entire argument of the Kamala Harris campaign boils down to forget how good things were when Donald Trump was president. Forget that we had rising take-home pay. Forget that we had low inflation. Forget that we had peace all over the world. And somehow, if you give Kamala Harris more power than she already has, she's somehow going to do something different than she's done for the past 3.5 years, Shannon.
So surprisingly, the Fox host is pushing back on J.D. Vance. The propaganda outlet decided to do its job. Just a tiny little bit today. A little bit of a shock to me, but Vance brings up the really funny point of Donald Trump's previous term as president as a defense to his current bad policies that he's proposing if him and Vance were to win, which they will not. But it's hilarious to me and embarrassing for JD, because JD Vance, of course, was critical of Trump when he was first running for president, very critical of his policies, but we've also seen them fail. We saw Donald Trump try them. We saw Donald Trump fail with them. He wrecked our economy in a historic way. And now JD Vance is using that as the defense of why Donald Trump would be strong on the economy. It really doesn't make any sense, and it's funny to me that he thinks that he can say Kamala Harris's success as vice president, which he doesn't want to call it that, but that's just the truth, doesn't make her qualified to be president. But Donald Trump's failures as president does. Does that track? Does that make any sense? This is the hypocrisy of the MAGA movement. They want to compare records without realizing that we remember just how bad Donald Trump's record was. We remember how poorly he did not only in his failed leadership, his lack of character, but the economic disaster that was his presidency. And so it's not just things like that it's funny that J.D. Vance, of course, is reminding of us of, like I said in the beginning of this video, he brought up one of the worst things you could possibly say with regards to Donald Trump. And again, the Fox host was shocked. And let's check that out.
Giving Kamala Harris control over inflation policy, Shannon, it's like giving Jeffrey Epstein control over human trafficking policy. The American people are much smarter than that. They don't buy the idea that Kamala Harris represents a fresh start. She is more of the same. It is doubling down on the failed policies of the Harris administration to give Kamala Harris a promotion rather than to fire her, which is what I think most Americans are going to do on November.
Why Republicans continue to talk about Jeffrey Epstein? I don't understand. I don't get it. Donald Trump was his friend. He currently owns his old plane. He flew on that plane with Jeffrey Epstein, I believe 16 times. They took photos together. They hung out together. There are clips. There's photographic evidence. He talked positively about him. Why is JD Vance using Jeffrey AB's name in any sentence talking about Donald Trump? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And also the comparison on inflation with KLA Harris, absolutely absurd and ridiculous. That's why you kind of saw the shock from the Foxos. Because even on the Fox propaganda network, they're talking about how it's an undeniable fact. Inflation is plummeting right now. It's at the lowest level since 2021, the recovery from the pandemic, and the Biden-Harris administration's effort to stop corporate price gouging has taken time. But we can now reap the rewards, and we are seeing the benefits of that time, because not only has our economy recovered from the place that Donald Trump put it in, that place being the gutter in 2020, but it is now booming because of the Biden-Harris administration. So just a ridiculous comparison. But I want to go back to the Epstein thing for just a second, because it's not the first time that Donald Trump has been embarrassed by someone close to him with this type of remark.
We're never going to surrender. It's not our style, man. We don't. At this point, we got to fight, because congratulations. If you're in this room right now, you're probably on the FBI list. You're in with me, my father, my family, so you're in with good company. I am on every list except the Epstein list. We haven't heard anything about that one in a while. I'm fine with all the other lists. As long as I'm not on the Epstein list, we're good, right? Speaking of which, how is it that my father can be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light? I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right, folks? It's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why, right? We're not allowed to say they're groomers, but when they act a lot like groomers, sort of tells you everything you need to know, right?
I've said this before and I'll say it again, but it's almost as if Donald Trump Jr. wants his dad to lose. He's just bringing up the worst stuff. You're not on the Epstein list. Your dad was friends with him again. He's flying his old plane right now. It's crazy stuff to me, and it's funny that Don Jr. said it. But what's even crazier is that he went ahead and tweeted about it after that CPAC performance from a couple of months ago. Don Jr. tweeted, who's not on the Epstein list, my father? Because if he was, it would have leaked in about a half second. And Don Jr. was immediately hit with a community note, writing Donald Trump. Trump was on Epstein's flight logs at least 7 times. Here are the receipts straight from the court records. In the Ghislaine-Maxwell case, lies are not shocking from a Trump that's their bread and butter. But I guess their bread and butter is also incompetence, which Don Jr. very clearly displayed there. But again, someone I want to bring this up, Don Jr. seemed to be the person most responsible for pushing JD Vance and why Donald Trump selected him. I think Don Jr. must be a double agent, all the decisions that one could possibly make. He has helped his dad make all the ridiculous things you could say. He has said, "It's just so funny to me," and someone else again who is very connected to Donald Trump and Don Jr., who seems like they're just saying things to hurt their own candidacy, is JD Vance. And that's so clear in this clip.
Shannon, I think there are a lot of polls that actually show her stagnating and leveling off. Of course, ABC Washington Post was a wildly inaccurate pollster in the summer of 2020. And look, if you see the numbers that we're seeing and you actually talk to the American people, I feel extremely confident that we're going to be in the right place come November. We can't worry about polls. We have to run through the finish line and encourage everybody to get out there and vote. But our message is going to be very simple. If you want to get back to the peace and prosperity, the rising take-home pay, Donald Trump delivered it once and he can do it again. If you want to double down on the failed policies that have delivered higher food prices and higher housing prices, well, Kamala Harris has been vice president for 3.5 years, and I guarantee she's going to make the problem worse if the American people give her a promotion.
So
the thing we have to remember,
we can see this in the numbers, making people feel more positively about the economy. About the future, people have hope, and they are excited because of KLA Harris. This isn't just a campaign for president. This is a unity campaign from KLA Harris. That is why Republicans are starting to move away from Donald Trump and over to Kamala Harris. Because this is more than a political campaign. This is a movement forward away from the cult, away from the divisiveness, away from Donald Trump. President Biden helped restore the soul of America, and alongside Kamala Harris, helping to move forward with her Kamala Harris, is bringing back the love, patriotism and energy in this country, uniting us all. And it is so incredible to see. This is a campaign of positivity, and I don't know how you could feel anything but positively about it. And if you do, and you want to support this channel and our message, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, that you leave a like on this video. It really goes a long way, and the support means the world to me. And until next time, I'll see you soon.